Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 268. Today we're going to talk about Concordia. This is a game that was released towards the end of last year in 2013. I believe it was an Essen release. The designer is Matt Gertz, who is most well known for doing his Rondel games. The favorite of which for me is Navigador. He also has Imperial 2030, Antique Duellum. So Navigator is definitely my favorite, except for maybe this one. There's a little spoiler. This isn't really a Rondel game, but it kind of feels like a Rondel game. It's basically like if you were to take the Rondel mechanism, which is like this wheel where you move, sort of like a worker placement thing, but really funky. It's hard to explain. Much easier to demonstrate. But this is like you took the Rondel off of the board and then gave each player a hand of cards, and then made some more modifications. So basically what you're doing is sort of expanding your trade network in the Mediterranean, and also doing a little bit of set collection. So the hand of cards you start with, you're going to play and move your merchants around and set up little trading posts and things, and then also grab more cards to kind of add into your deck, as you will, or basically your giant hand. It's basically a giant hand of cards. So you do that, and then the only scoring that's going to happen is from the cards that you have. So the cards are dual purpose. They will be able to give you different actions to do, but they're also going to basically count towards different combinations and bonuses you get for certain goods and certain trading posts and other certain cards and things. So on the bottom of each card is going to give you your points, versus also kind of the top of the card is going to give you an action. So basically you're putting a bunch of stuff out on the board, collecting goods, trading goods in, and then collecting this giant set of cards, which is going to give you a whole bunch of points at the end. So it makes it kind of hard to know how well you're doing. I'm kind of getting into the review before I even tell you how to play, but let's stop now before I get carried away and take a look at how Concordia plays, and then I will come back and tell you about it, kind of how it compares to the other Rondel games and that Navigador, and also pretty much two other games last year really kind of hit on the same level of kind of a deck building thing, sort of a hand building, and also some different kind of Euro stuff. So let's jump into how it works first. So the first thing to know about the game is it actually has a double-sided board here. And here you can see the side for 2, 3, or 4 players. And you can kind of tell, a certain number of different trading outposts and things like that. And then on the other side, we have a little bit more of an open-ended board. And this is for 3, 4, or 5 players. So if you want to play a 3-player game that's more open-ended, you can play on this side, or a tighter game on the other side. But if you're playing with 5, then you definitely want to play on this side. Also, there's going to be a deck of cards here. You can see here 1, and then 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to that. So based on the player count, you're going to set this deck of cards, and then you're going to have those coming out here on the top row to be purchased on display there. Now the other thing to notice here, if we zoom in just a little bit there, you can see we have these letters above some of the trading outposts. Well, here you're going to have these little tokens here, so you can see this is a C here, and this here is going to be giving you your stone, your anvil stuff, and then here we have a B, and then this is going to be giving you your brick. So you're going to take all these out and put them on matching letters. So we're going to put all the B's on the B's, the C's on the C's, and then the D's on the D's, etc. out here, and then you flip them all over. So the variety and setup is going to change a lot from game to game. So you're going to have kind of these interesting sort of ideal networks. You kind of try to assess where I want to go and where I want to kind of build my little outposts and things like that. And that's going to vary, and because of this whole letter matching system, it works really well to kind of get to a point where there's not really a super wonky setup, but there is enough variety to make the game replayable. And a lot of times you're going to be kind of assessing, similar to like a Dominion, let's say, where you kind of take a few minutes, try to assess the board, figure out kind of where you want to stake your claim, and what kind of cards you're looking at. And then you kind of, boom, taking a sort of strategic start to the game, and then kind of as the cards come out and evolve and the other players kind of do their thing, you're going to sort of adjust your strategy. Now the other thing that you're going to notice here are these different colored areas here. These are provinces. This is kind of, Roman time period. Well, up here in the left-hand corner, you're going to see little boxes here with pictures that match the different provinces. Well, you're going to have these tokens here like so, and these are going to be all the different goods. They're double-sided tokens. On one side, you're going to have a good, so you can see there's brick, and then on the other side of these is going to be a certain number of coins. And then you're just going to tip these out here, and these are going to end up sort of matching kind of what that province ends up being good at. So again, you have a little bit more variety in the setup, and I'll explain why this is important, when I talk about the game. But this is going to really give you another piece of information to chew on, in addition to how you put out these different tokens here. So let's go ahead and set up a little bit, and then we'll go through a turn. So I've gone ahead and set up the board here on this side of the map, and again, set up all of these goods tokens here. Each player has a player board, which I'll show you a little bit more about in a second. But here you can see the value of the goods there. So the brick is cheapest and the cloth is the most expensive. So this is the buy and sell value always in the game. So one thing you're going to do is you're going to look in each province, see which is the most valuable type of good. So here in Hispania we have the cloth. And you can see by this little chart here that cloth is the most valuable. So if we take a look over here, then we can see we're going to mark Hispania there with the cloth. So you take the most valuable good showing and then take the matching token and then put that in the respective box there. And then players are going to start here in the middle with one of their sort of land traveling merchants here, and then one of their seafaring, or they call them colonists here. So during the game, you're going to be trying to, move these guys here on different sea networks, and then these guys will be moving around on the land. And then once you get them to a spot, you can then build houses in your color here. So we'll see the little yellow houses there. So you can build, in this case, either on Syracuse or in Cyrene there. So you can take and build this, and there's a cost to that. So you're trying to get sort of a network of these out on the board. And you're going to get bonus points at the end of the game by having different houses on different types of goods, on different areas, and all kinds of different combinations of that. And these are also going to allow you to sort of deal and trade in those goods. Now here we can see the player board and what they're going to start with. So you start with, again, 2 colonists there on the main board, and then 2 more of each type here on your board. And then everybody starts with the same goods here, but there's also a couple of variant starts. You can start with no goods and a bunch of extra money. Each player will get some money to start the game depending on the player count. And here you get this little card here to show you the most important parts of the game. So if you want to build one of your little settlement houses, on a certain type of trading post there, so this brick one will cost you wheat and $1, and you put that on there. And if you want to put one out on a cloth spot, like so, it's going to cost you a brick, a cloth, and $5. So it's kind of an interesting sort of mind job that you kind of usually need the thing you are going to end up producing with that. Now you always usually need brick, except for when you make brick. So these are the different ways to get that out there. Now if somebody else already has a settlement out there, so if blue came out here and then yellow is trying to build on top of it, then you have to multiply the coin cost there. So in this case here, this was a brick, then the second player in there would have to pay $4, and then the next guy would have to pay $6, and so on. Now if we take a look here, each player is going to have an identical hand of cards here, and basically your turn is going to consist of basically playing the card, and then everybody's going to keep going around it, and then as you play cards, you're going to lose your options. So let's say we start playing all these cards, and then at some point you're going to play this Tribune card. And this says take back all your personality cards, gain $1 for each card taken in excess of 3. So if you had like 6 cards, you get $3 back, including the card you just played here, the Tribune. And in addition, you can build a colonist in Rome for a wheat and a anvil. And so Rome over here, again, this is where we start with, guys, out there in the middle. And so every time you kind of go through your cycle of cards, you can put out a colonist, either kind of colonist here. You can put out either a sea colonist or a land colonist. So let's take a look at these cards and what they're going to do, and then go from there. So the first card here is the move your colonists and then build in cities adjacent to your colonists. Okay, and just before I forget, these little icons and colors here at the bottom of the cards are where you're going to be able to score your points. I'll talk more about in the middle, but that is where the only way you score your points. All these little colors and things are going to combo off of different things that you do in the game. I'll talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about just the actions that the cards can do. So move your colonists and build. So when you move your colonists, the first thing you're going to do is look at how many colonists you have on the board. In this case, each player starts with 2 colonists, so they get kind of like 2 movement points. So if this was the situation, then either I could take and move, let's say, this guy twice, or I could move, or that wouldn't be right, I could do this guy twice, let's say, or I could move this guy once and this guy once. But basically the number of colonists is the amount of movement that you get. So you can move your colonists, splitting however you want, and then you can do a build action anywhere that you're in between again. So now he could build here or here, again paying the cost that we see on this card here. And you can build as much as you want, you know, adjacent to any colonist as long as you can pay for it. The next thing we see here is the Mercator. Take $3 and trade up to 2 types of goods. So that's pretty straightforward. You take $3 and then you're going to go ahead and look on this chart here again, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the different types of goods. Now you can use those sort of trade actions however you want. So you could sell a bunch of cloth and a bunch of wheat, or you could buy some wheat and sell some anvils, or you could buy some wine and buy some bricks. So you can do 2 buys and or sells, and then in 2 types of goods. So you may collect, you know, a bunch of cloth through actions on the board and then kind of dump it, you know, and get a lot of cash. Now the next card here is Prefect, and we actually start with 2 of these in our deck. And this is basically how we're going to produce goods. So you have 2 choices when you play a Prefect. You can turn over 1 active province tile, and then you get the bonus, or you can reactivate all the provinces that have been activated and get the money. So let's take a look. Let's say we had played the Prefect here for Britannia. We can see yellow and blue are both on the cloth, and then blue here is on the anvil there. So let's say blue plays the Prefect card. So everybody's going to collect their goods. So yellow's going to get a cloth, blue's going to get a cloth, and blue's going to get some steel there. And also, since he triggered Britannia, we're going to activate here the token there. So he's going to be able to flip that over. It's going to go to its coin side, and then the blue player is going to get a bonus cloth out of there. So blue's actually going to get 2 cloths. So as you activate these and try to get these high value goods as a bonus, you're going to start to see a lot of coins. So the other action that you can do by playing the Prefect card is to collect all visible coins, and then you reset everything back to its good side. There's also this Prefect Magnus card, and this goes to the player that's to the right of the start player, and whenever they play one of their Prefect cards, if they choose to do the action that gives them a good, not the collect coins part, but the one that gives them the bonus good, they can get a second bonus out of whatever tile that they flipped up there. So they can get a second one out of that. So you can collect, you know, quite a few goods, and then this actually passes along to the right. Now here we have the Senator, and this one says purchase up to 2 new personality cards and put them directly into your hand. And if we look here at the row of cards, you can see left to right, this is going to basically get seeded out of the deck there and then start to get dealt down. And so you can see here the purchase cost of the card is going to be on the right hand side there. So that's going to cost you normally one of those steels there, and then some of these will cost multiples. So if we look over here, this one actually costs you a brick and a wheat, and then the cards to the right are going to have an additional cost. You can see these little icons underneath these card spaces. And so all the way over here, you're going to have to pay 2 cloth in addition to the cost on the card itself. And then these ones with the question mark is basically any good. So I could pay a wheat or brick or whatever, even another cloth if I really wanted to, on these question marks here. So you're going to be able to buy 2 of those with the Senator action. And if we take a look at what these cards are doing here, a lot of these are almost improved versions of the cards that you start with. So like this one here, this is a different one here. So this is build a new colonist in your cities, each for, you know, that. And then, or you can take $5 per colonist on the board. And you can see here, here's the little bonus there. So this will give you 2 points at the end of the game per colonist out on the board. I'll go through all those in a minute. I just want to give you an example of one. So this one is basically an improved Mercator. Take 5 goods, or excuse me, $5 and trade up to 2 goods. And then, you know, this one here, these production ones are very nice. This is produce food in all of your places where you have a settlement. So only you're producing the wheat here, and there's one, you know, for each of those. So that's the Senator. That's how you pick these up. Finally, we have the Diplomat. This is probably the most interesting card in the deck. And this is basically says use an opponent's top face-up personality card in his discard pile. So if somebody else had played previously, I don't know, the Mercator, and then that was face-up, and then you played your Diplomat, you can copy somebody else's last card that they played. So that's kind of a way for you to get a double action of a card that you only have one of in your deck or something like that. And again, you have the Tribune as well, which basically lets you pick all the cards back up and get a little bit of money, and again put some colonists out on the board. So that's all the actions you can do. Let's take a look here at the bonuses, like so. So basically everybody's going to have a card here that gives them 1 point for every $10 at the end of the game. This is 1 point per city, but remember here it says no brick city, so basically 1 point for each settlement that you have on the board. This one here is 1 point for each province where you have a settlement. So again, breaking down all the provinces, you want to get kind of a variety of settlements out in different provinces. And then this one here, we have 2 points for each production. And that's basically you want to have on different types of production. So there's 5 different types, and that way you can get 10 points if you're on, you know, cloth and brick and all the different ones. And then finally we have here, like I said earlier, 2 points per colonist on the board. And then you have these green ones, which are specialists. So let me show you a couple of those. And as you might think, specialist is basically specializing in one type of good. So in this case, you're going to get 3 points per wheat that you're on, 3 points per brick, 3 points per anvil. So you're basically going to play the game until the last card out of the deck is purchased, so there's no more cards at all, or one player has built their last settlement. So whoever triggers that, that's the last turn they get for the game, but they're going to get here this little 7-point bonus here. So whoever triggers the end of the game gets 7 points, and then everybody else gets 1 more turn. Now there are rules for like doing intermediate scoring in the game, kind of as a beginner thing. Yeah, I guess you could do that. I've actually never even played with that. But the first time you play, you're going to be like, okay, I have 0 points, and then I'm going to go now and count up all the bonuses here on all the bottom of my cards. And that is a little bit tricky, to be honest, to get your head around, because you're trying to do all this stuff on the board and really manage your goods and be able to produce a lot of goods, to be able to buy more cards, and to be able to get lots of settlements out in the different areas. But you're trying to purchase cards that'll let you do that easier, but then you've also got to consider the bonus. So it's 2 kind of left and right brain kind of things going on almost, that you need at least 1 play, in my case more than 1, to get your head around. I'm not very good at this. But let's go into the review. Okay, hope you enjoyed the overview. This is a game it's really kind of grown on me. I remember the first time I played it a couple months ago probably. And I was like, wow, this is really cool and interesting, but it was kind of like, oh, it's a Euro. And I mean, obviously, if you don't watch my videos, you know I really like Euros, but it's kind of like, okay, this feels samey. But, you know, now that I've played it a couple more times, it's really kind of grown on me. And I think because I've played different player counts and different sides of the board and stuff like that, and my play group, sort of my gamer group on Thursdays, they've been playing it more, and I think everybody really enjoys it there. And so everybody's kind of gotten better at the game, and so the game itself, not just kind of, you know, not muddling, but kind of sifting your way through, you know, the mechanisms and seeing how best to do things. And everybody's kind of absorbed that. Now it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to take this card from you because it feels like you're trying to build these up, and this is going to help me, and, you know, trying to optimize, you know, all the stuff that you do. So people have gotten better. And so the game itself is now happening with those folks. So it's really cool because, like I said, it's got a 2-sided board. You can kind of put out the different trading outposts randomly, and all that other stuff is going to, you know, connect to that. So it's going to be kind of, it's almost like having a new map every time, even though there's only 2 physical maps. Because of the way that the layout happens, I don't think I can oversell that. That really is a very kind of key, cool thing about the game. Is you can sit down and it's like getting a new power grid map or something. You know, it's like, oh, this is a new map. It's just randomly different this time. And I can see that this system, similar to the Rondell, could be applied to, you know, different themes and time periods, and, you know, little tweaks here and there. So I hope you know, he does kind of explore it a little bit more. I mean, not to beat it into the ground like, you know, we tend to do with board gaming in general. It seems like, oh, this worked. Let's do it 5 more times. But, you know, I could see this kind of being reinvestigated, or, like, you know, new maps coming out or something like that, some kind of modular expansion for it. It's really fun. A couple of things that are interesting about it is kind of this brinkmanship idea. And by brinkmanship, I mean I get into an area where you have, you know, some settlements there, and that way I can kind of piggyback when you call Prefect and do the production. So you want to kind of spread out, and not only for the bonus points at the end of the game, you know, being in different provinces and being on different types of production areas, but there is a little bit of sort of that, you know, it's pretty interactive. I mean, it's kind of your Euro interactive, where it's like, I'm not hitting you, but I'm kind of piggybacking off of you, and you're trying to kind of figure out the best way to do that. So you have to do the least amount of work to get the most amount of production out of the map, and that's pretty cool. I really like that aspect of the game. You know, and the other thing is, I I do really have started to really enjoy the whole end game, you know, going from 0 to 90 or whatever. Not me. I don't go to 90. Well, probably I max out at 90 actually. Anyway, but you know, that whole kind of 0 to 60 at the end of the game is cool. And it's really kind of is wonky at first, but you really do have to kind of figure out, you know, what's going on and kind of play it a few times to get the idea. And like the last time I played, I was like, okay, I know I'm not going to win. I was pretty sure, you know, Billy over there was going to win, and he did. So I could sense that I was trying to, you know, get a better grasp on the game. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I like the, oh, one thing I didn't mention is when you move your stuff, you can't land in the same sort of route segment as the other folks. I didn't mention that, but that's actually important because you can kind of use that to kind of block off and make things difficult, make them spend more points to get to certain areas. And the routes on the maps and stuff, getting to certain areas is, you know, easier or harder with, you know, the land versus the sea guy. So there's a little bit of intricacies there as well. So that's kind of an interesting part of it. But yeah, it's, you know, I think the card design could be a little bit better because it's kind of ugly. But I mean, I don't know, kind of 6 1/2 dozen on that stuff. But that could be a little bit better. That's the only thing. But otherwise, graphically and component-wise, the game really is very nice. So the other thing I was going to mention was there's 3 games last year. This one included in Rococo and Lewis and Clark. And all of them have this kind of like deck building board game thing happening where it's not really deck building because you're not like going through your deck a whole bunch, but you're set collecting and in some ways and card collecting and hand building because Lewis and Clark you kind of build up a hand. Rococo kind of feels more like a deck because you go and draw a certain amount of cards and then you kind of have to go through them. More like deck building, whereas Lewis and Clark in this game it's like, okay, now I have a huge hand of cards and I've got to figure out a way to get through them. So I have Lewis and Clark still. I got rid of Concordia, and this is not my copy of Concordia. And what did I just say? Sorry, I had a brain. I kept Lewis and Clark. Let me make sure I get this right. I kept Lewis and Clark, got rid of Rococo, and this is not my copy of Concordia. And it's a friend of mine. There's 2 copies kind of floating in my game group, and I may pick this up, and maybe I'll try. I'm going to try this with the family and see how they like it. But I don't know. I don't own Navigador either because there's like 4 copies of that floating around my game group. But yeah, folks really seem to like Concordia and Navigador, which is my favorite. I played Antique and Imperial 2030, and I don't know. Those didn't really work for me for some reason. And and Antique Duellum, which also didn't work. But this one feels more thematic, and that's the thing with Navigador and this one is there's a certain kind of thematicness about it that to me the mechanics and everything and all that, how that stuff works with the theme, whereas in a couple of others I was just like, this is so abstract to me that I couldn't get into it, and there's hundreds of games that I can play that do both. So anyway, so that's kind of where I sit with this. So I may kind of pick this up and see how it goes. But I don't know have the need to. But I would say from last year, I think I still like Lewis and Clark a little bit better than this one, just because it's not so much like a set collecting, combo collecting, you know, kind of Euro thing. This kind of still falls on that. It does it in a really fresh way though. Lewis and Clark is the whole race idea, which is cool. I mean, that you don't see a lot of in this style of game. And then Rococo, I keep crossing Concordia and Rococo. It's like a thing is happening. Rococo I got rid of because that really did end up feeling very Euro-y. It's like, okay, get, you know, area majority here and this combo of set collecting there, and that felt more traditional. It's not a bad game. It's just like, well, how many do I need? So I would still recommend Rococo. But this was another one I might slip in there and maybe get Navigador as well. See how that works with the family. Anyway, that's kind of my take on those 3. It seemed like there was like the 3 deck builder / Euro type of weirdness thing happening. But so in my order, Lewis and Clark, Concordia, and Rococo. But they're all 3 really good. So there you go. Okay, thanks.